Tonkin here from Wise, Witty and Weird. I'm glad you could be with me today to talk about things that are probably not all that witty, probably not all that wise, and probably really not all that weird. But nevertheless, we're here to have a conversation about things that are happening here in Australia today. In particular, normally I talk about issues that are happening overseas, and particularly anything that's Trumpified, because I'm more than happy to have conversations about what happens in America, because it just fascinates me that there is a country that declares that they are the best at everything, and that American exceptionalism is exceptional. Well, at the moment it's exceptionally bad, but that's a conversation I guess I'll have later on. But at the moment I want to talk about how it is for people in Victoria now that they've got to go through another lockdown. Agreed, it is really short, it's only for 5 days, but it is another lockdown which is created because of an outbreak within hotel quarantine in Victoria, and that the government are doing probably what most Victorians would on the whole I guess agree with, that locking the place down as they have, ensuring that the outbreak, because it's this UK variant, that perhaps it won't spread as wide as it has in the past, and that perhaps they will be able to deal with it as they did some months ago when they had that major outbreak. They were able to, some 600 odd people were infected, and they were able to bring that down relatively quickly, I guess, by locking the state down. But it has created some problems because as soon as the outbreak, the public was notified of the outbreak, and interstate, the state governments discovered that there was this outbreak, they decided that the best thing that they could do was to close the borders. And as a result of the rapid closure of the border between South Australia and Victoria, there was a multiple car accident which involved a truck running into the back of a whole lot of other vehicles that were waiting to cross the border. So I guess one of the things that tends to happen is that when people hear there's going to be a lockdown, they need to get from one state to another. They all hop in their vehicles, and in this country they tend to drive. And even though we do have long distances to travel normally, it's something like 700, 800 kilometres between Adelaide and Melbourne, that people hopped in their cars, try to get across the border, and as a result, there are long queues in order to do so when there's a rapid lockdown like that. A truck came and probably didn't realise that there were lots of cars in this queue, and that it was stacked up for about 5 kilometres, rammed into the back of another car, and I think there were some fatalities. I hear there's an inquiry into that, which is fair enough, but I don't necessarily think that is a problem that any government specifically needs to worry about. It was just something that happened. But what the lockdown does mean, I guess, is that here in Australia we have found a way to meet the problem. And a lot of people, I can't wait to see what Sky News are saying about Andrew's lockdown in Victoria, because they hate him. And that everything that Andrews does, who's the Premier, they object to, and no doubt they're going to object to this current lockdown. And I often think, if you were in control and you were listening to all the experts, the doctors, the medical professionals, the health professionals around this particular issue, what would you be doing that would be so different? And I often wonder, the likes of Alan Jones and Andrew Bolt would be saying, and Chris Kenny would be saying, let's just open this up and let's just everybody get back to normal. In the meantime, the virus would spread around the country and heaps of people would probably die. We haven't had a death in this country for a long time. And in a lot of our states, particularly here in South Australia, we haven't had a case or an outbreak for months. And we wander around this particular state without having to wear masks. And I think we need to celebrate the fact that each state and the National Cabinet have been able to manage this virus effectively. In fact, we are one of the few countries in the world where, to some extent, we've been virus-free in terms of community spread, because most of these infections come about because of returning travellers, and they always come about because there's somebody who's returning from overseas, which in itself amazes me that people can come back to this country infected and then pass that infection on to somebody else through a quarantine hotel. I don't understand how that works. One would have thought the best thing to do would have been to have them tested before they leave the country of origin, and if they were negative, if they were positive, and if they had a temperature, if they had any indications whatsoever that they may have the virus, then clearly they shouldn't do the flight. So the quarantine, and there is an issue, I think, in terms of outbreaks within quarantine hotels. I don't know how you deal with that necessarily. I'm not an expert in this area. I'm an allied health professional, but I'm not a professional in this area. And I think that there are ways by which they could deal with it. I mean, one of the things they have done here in South Australia is that anybody who works in a quarantine hotel cannot have a second job because I don't know whether it was here in Victoria, but somewhere they had a guy who was an Uber driver, and he potentially could have infected a whole host of other people through his second job. We had somebody here who worked in a Pizza Hut place, and he worked in a hotel, but then also had this second job. And as a result of that, there was a small outbreak here in South Australia a little while ago. So, but we have been able to manage it well. And I think we must say that Australians generally, believe it or not, are a pretty compliant bunch. We still have those people that sit on the sidelines who object to wearing a mask anyway, who believe that this virus is a hoax, who propagate conspiracy theories and QAnon and other stuff. And they are part of the lunatic fringe, but they're not the majority by any means. And fortunately, most Australians accept that we can deal with this particular problem, and from there we can move forward. So this is an important time in Victoria and it's important for us as Australia to know that we can nip this in the bud. I don't know what's happening in relation to the tennis that's being held in Victoria at the moment. I'm assuming it's been cancelled, given what Kevin Andrews said today, but I don't know. It was unclear, and I only picked up the presentation that Andrews was giving a bit late in the piece. But if all Victorians have to shut down, so should all sporting events. And I think that's what he said. Basically, all sporting events in Victoria were closed for 5 days. So I don't know whether that means they've just postponed the event, the tennis Australian Open, or not, but I guess we will just wait and see. So that's my thoughts on the coronavirus. For those of you that are interested and want to have further conversation with us, please make sure that you fill out the details below. Let us know, make a comment, and also it's really important to know that you can subscribe to this particular channel. I mean, I know at the moment, frankly, we don't have all that many people that do subscribe, but you've got to start from somewhere, I guess, and this is where we're starting from. And that I hope that at some point we can have Avery back having a conversation with us as well about some of the things that interest him. So thanks for being with me. I am going to make another video later on about transparency, honesty within corporations, which has come about through the Crown Casino and through the Collingwood, some stuff around the Collingwood Football Club that I want to talk about as well. So keep an eye on that, and I'll get back to you shortly to have that particular conversation. In the meantime, take care of yourself, look after yourself, and above all, be safe. See ya.